Hello and welcome to Talk to Stu with me, Stuart McGoo. And as always, I'm joined with my producer, mediator, and partner, Becky, who is there. Yes, so thank you for joining us this evening. Thanks to my regular viewers and subscribers who have returned. And if you're new as well, thank you for joining us. Welcome. First of all, I want to just say thanks. I received this card. I won't say who sent it, but it was a really lovely card. It was to me and Becky, just thanking us for the work that we're doing here. And it's just good to know that we're appreciated and that we are making a difference, and that we're helping people as much as we can. And so that's really good, and thank you for that. And I will say to everybody, it's lovely to receive a card like this, but please don't feel that you have to send any form of cash or money to me or to Becky. We're both working. We've got a reasonably good income. It's lovely if people do that, but we do get a bit of income coming out of the YouTube channel as well. Not much, but a little bit helps us keep going. So please don't feel that you have to do anything like that. Now, first of all, bit of a mic check. Can everyone hear me okay? That's falling down. I'll just put it there. If you've got any issues with the volume or anything, let us know. As always, first of all, I'm going to start off with a bit of news. Things that have been developing over the last month or so. So, first of all, universal credit. So, people on working tax credits are going to be invited over the next 2 years, if they're still on working tax credits, to move over to claiming universal credit. That process began in April 2023, so they will all be receiving notifications over the next 2 years to move their claims over to universal credit. So if that affects you, if you are on working tax credits, then that is something to be aware of and look out for. So also, the government have announced that they are going to be focusing on people over 50 with universal credit, delivering more intensive support, and they're going to be installing what they're calling 50 plus champions at the job centres to support people over the age of 50 with a much more tailored approach to getting them back into work. And they are going to be put on what they call returnerships. Now, this doesn't mean people coming back off a cruise. This means this is like apprenticeships, but returnerships. So it's supposed to be about upskilling people that are over the age of 50 who've maybe been doing some kind of work to getting them to do something different in the future. Whether they will be the same as apprenticeships or have that kind of sort of way of doing things, of learning on the job as you go and all that sort of thing, or whether it will be kind of courses that you do that will just give you skills in IT and things like that, so you can do office work where previously you might have been truck driver, something like that. How that's actually going to pan out, they're not clear about that at this time, but that is the approach. Now, when they use the word intensive, I hear the word sanctions, so that is something to be aware of. Obviously, as was announced in the previous white paper, they are going to be a lot more tough on sanctions, and we're going to see a lot more of that kind of thing happening. Whether that means they're going to, at the same time as increasing support for people over 50, kind of toughen up on those sanctions as well, isn't clear. But, and I'm not saying this to scare anybody, but be aware that if you are over 50, when this is introduced, which won't be for some time just yet, it should be in 2024, When this is introduced, you will probably have more claimant commitments added to the things that you do. So it might be attending one of these, upskilling sessions or training sessions, whatever you want to call it. That might be part of your thing, and then if you don't go, then you may get a sanction. So I suspect that's what's going to be happening. More exciting news that I'm sure you're going to be all really pleased to hear about is that they are creating a virtual agent telephone system. So the point of this new system is probably going to be a robotic voice on the phone that will replace speaking to an actual human being, which will apparently work in tandem with speaking to actual human beings, and allow you to get answers to certain questions a lot quicker, inform them of things a lot quicker without having to be, hanging around on the phone on hold for 6 years before you get to speak to somebody, things like that. So there will be some elements where it will speed certain things up, particularly some of the smaller tasks that maybe are quite simple. So if you're ordering a form or updating your bank details, things like that, that might be the things that they're really sort of aiming for with this. So it's probably not going to fully replace that system whereby you speak to a person, but I suspect it will make it much harder for people to navigate through a million different options on the phone until they actually get to speak to someone. As before, the primary way of communicating on Universal Credit is your journal, and that will be the main thing. But they are envisaging more people claiming for Universal Credit in the future, and so they are looking at doing this. So another element of this new telephone system is that from 2024, any on-the-phone assessments that you have done will be automatically recorded. So, as we know, there's been a lot of issues around people who are having PIP assessments or UC50 work capability assessments or ESA 50 work capability assessments on the phone or over a video call. There's been a lot of issues where for quite a while the DWP wouldn't let people record those calls, and of course they would lie about what was actually said. Sorry, did I say lie? They might make a mistake about what was actually said during that assessment. Sorry, I shouldn't have said lie, I didn't mean it. During the assessment, and then of course that would get pulled apart at appeal, and the DWP would walk away with egg on their face and have to award it. Then people started recording them, so they tried to change it to make it so that you had to record it with 2 tapes. I mean, who has tapes anymore, for crying out loud? And then Disability Charities said, right, well, we'll get some tapes in and stuff, and went round that way. So rather than going through all that mess, what they're now doing is recording those things. You can opt out of doing that if you wish, but it's probably advisable that you don't and that you have those recordings. Now, as with all things that are related to you, any form of data that relates to you, data can be requested. So if you, for example, if you are in a position where you need to do a mandatory reconsideration or an appeal, you can request that information to be sent to you by the DWP. So they should send it to you on a memory stick or something like that, so you can play it back on your computer or whatever, assuming you have one. If you don't, you could request it on CD or possibly tape. I would insist on a tape just to prove the point, but that might hold things up, so maybe don't take that piece of advice. But like I say, that could be quite useful. That's going to be introduced in 2024. Again, no date of when in 2024 is given at this time. Just want to do a quick update on the scrapping of the work capability assessment, because I know a lot of people are very worried about that, whether it's going to affect them or not. So first of all, this isn't going to come in until 2026 or 2027, okay? And there will still be, during that period, some people that will have to go through it because it would have already been booked in before that transition starts. For anybody that does have to go through it, there's been a lot of worries around the fact that the assessment to decide whether or not you get the extra health premium on universal credit will be done through PIP. So whether or not you get PIP. So some people that are not fit to work, who are getting that higher rate under universal credit because they have limited capability for work-related activity and they're in that group, so they get that higher rate, but they're not claiming PIP, or they've had their PIP turned down for whatever reason. There's been the concern, well, are they going to lose that money? The government have assured that people will get transitional protection, so that when that system comes in place, they will remain on the same rate. This will mean that this new system will only apply to people who are applying for the first time, whereby they may miss out on that extra money if they don't apply for PIP. Now, there are some issues that I have around transitional protection because it isn't linked to to inflationary increases, generally speaking. That doesn't mean that this won't be. It might be. We don't know for certain. But, you know, that's the thing. But like I say, none of this is going to happen till 2026, 2027. Okay. So this is also going to be affected by the transition that's still needing to happen for people on legacy employment support allowance, old style ESA, as well as new style ESA, for them to all move over onto universal credit. So that will be happening. Just to be clear, people on new style ESA only will have to move over onto universal credit when their contributions come to an end. Okay. Also, to go along with this and to make this easier, the government have said they are going to use specialist assessors to do health assessments. And again, they're going to start introducing this towards the end of this year, but more into 2024. So these specialist assessors will have specialist training in the primary health condition that the person has who is making a claim, either for the work capability element of universal credit or for personal independence payment, or possibly children's DLA and attendance allowance as well, but they operate in a different way. So with these assessments, you will have somebody who's specifically trained in the primary health condition you have. Now, of course, straight away, a lot of people are going to be there thinking, well, what is my primary health condition? I've got so many. Which one is it? So that's obviously going to be an issue. A lot of these ideas, you know, the recording of calls, the specialist assessors, things like that, is to try and reduce the amount of people that get turned down at appeal or go to appeal in the first place. I think we can all think of simpler ways of reducing those numbers that would be better, but this is what they're looking at. Another thing that people have been asking me about and has been talked about in the news is whether or not personal independence payment is going to stay means tested or not. I did make some comments on this earlier. It was talked about that there was the possibility of PIP becoming means tested. They've assured people that PIP will stay non-means tested, so it will still be based on your health conditions and nothing else. It will not be about the amount of money that you have. Okay, So yes, so that's something that's very important and quite reassuring. So what that does mean is that anybody who is getting or going through the work capability side of things now, or applies for universal credit in the future, who has a health condition, that they will be kind of pushed a little bit towards doing a PIP assessment and being successful with that for them to get the additional premiums in universal credit. Okay, which might be a good thing in some respects if it works and the system's a lot better and people aren't just being unilaterally turned down for PIP, which they are at the moment. But we shall see. So that's my news updates for now. Let's see what time we're on. Now, we've had a lot of questions over the course of the last month or so, since the last episode. So I'm just having a quick look over these. Sharon Rose, for example, asked that she'd had 2 assessments cancelled. Does this happen a lot? She has to wait quite a number of weeks now before she can get the next one, and it's causing a lot of stress and upset. Assessments do get cancelled quite often, so always be prepared for the fact that your assessment may get cancelled. 2 things are a factor with that. Firstly, illness. We've still got issues with COVID and other things going around, which makes a person unwell, so that they're not able to do that assessment if they're the assessor. So that's part of it, but also the DWP do have issues with the amount of staff that they can get to do this. So if somebody is ill, it does often mean that that people have to have their assessments kind of rolled back for a couple of weeks. That can obviously make the process go a lot longer, can be much more stressful for you. There's no real solution to that. I could be sort of condescending and say, oh, do some mindfulness and stuff, but, do whatever you need to try and deal with it. Mindfulness is not for everybody. And do remember as well that when you go through the assessment, even if it is delayed, when it eventually goes through and it's a positive result, you will get that money covering that period of time that you were waiting for the assessment as well. So you will get all of that come through eventually. So bear that in mind. Another question was about signing the forms. If a form comes through for somebody that you're filling it out for them and you need to sign the form for them, but there's not a section on the form to say to fill in your details to sign on their behalf so that that's done properly. The most important thing here is to phone them up and check. It may well be that they've sent you the wrong type of form and they can send you the right one, or it might be that you can become a named representative for that person. You don't necessarily need to have lasting power of attorney to do that, so it's good to phone them and talk that through with them, because they may be able to make sure that you can sign all their documents on their behalf. So just call the main helpline number that's at the top of the letter, explain the situation, and you should be able to do that. So thank you, Deborah, for that question. And there's a few questions I've had popping up about social housing and things like that, which I will want to talk about at some point, but maybe not tonight. But if anyone watching, if you've got some thoughts on that, if that's something that might be useful to you, let me know. Yeah, I think that's that for now. Right. Somebody says this is quite useful for people who are looking for advice and guidance on filling out forms and things like that. Apart from watching my amazing videos, you can also, if you're a person who suffers with ME, the ME Association have a whole host of leaflets on how to fill all the forms out. Many are free and some are just £1 or £2. And you can get some excellent support for that. So, Google ME Association. Thank you, Catherine, for that update. Okay, lovely. Right, let's go to some questions from people in the room, in the house. Sorry, I won't do that again.
Good. We have lots of questions.
Great.
So I've got a question from Claire, but I've also got a few little sort of additional bits for context. I'm going to need to take a second to scroll down as well. So digest the initial question. Yes.
Digesting.
And
yes.
then I'll give you some more context. So Claire is from Cornwall. I used to live in Exeter, which is not Cornwall, but it's close. Love Cornwall. She has a question regarding PIP tribunal. Her tribunal was adjourned last week, and the judge asked that she gets her GP records. Any advice if the GP has not always included what she said? Hold your horses one moment. Consider that. Okay, there's a lot of context here. So, just scrolling. To add to her question, she had ADHD diagnosed, but it was a nurse who did the diagnosis, not a psychiatrist like it should have been. The nurse said only mildly, and she only just gets the diagnosis, which is wrong. But she's also just been diagnosed with Asperger's, and she was on the waiting list when she actually did the application for PIP. She also has fibromyalgia. But that only just got diagnosed, and before that she was having lots of tests for the last few years, but she has the autism and fibromyalgia diagnosis now. However, the GP hasn't always put the things down properly with sick notes, so she's worried that will be a hinder. She also claims universal credit and has limited capacity for work and work-related activity.
Right.
The PIP report said that the evidence is being discounted because she can drive a car.
Okay. Yeah, they always come out with some nonsense like that. I drive a car, I get PIP. It's nonsense. So picking that apart. So first of all, what you need to do is put in a data protection request for all of your medical records from your GP. Okay, so where your GP might not record certain things on your medical records, you will find that they do. Sorry, we've got a ridiculous amount of motorbikes going on here, and I'm worried that the sound's coming through. Apologies if it is. It's also a bit distracting. So, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, love, that'd be great. So, if you're on. If you've got sick notes and things like that, quite often the doctor will just put on a sick note just what is required to make it so that you don't need to either go into work or so that you are okay with continuing your universal credit claim or your ESA claim. So even though you might have, for example, fibromyalgia and autism and ADHD and anxiety, things like that, the doctor might just put on there anxiety and stress sort of thing, because that's all that it is. That's the symptoms that are stopping you from being there. But all of your health conditions, if they are properly diagnosed and your doctor has received those letters from whoever diagnosed you and those kind of things, all of that will be contained in your medical records. So if you do a full data protection request, you just need to tell them the length of time that you want your medical records to cover, sort of thing. 4 years is probably going to be enough, but you may go a bit more. The longer it is, the more paper they give you. You will have to tell them whether you want that in paper format or in electronic format, and it will cover everything. And it's a really good thing to do anyway. I advise this to anybody who's watching this, to go in and do that medical records thing. Under GDPR law, even the new UK GDPR laws, you have the right to access your data at any time. It does take up to 28 days for them to give it to you. If you're nice to the receptionist and they're a nice receptionist and you're lucky, then they might speed that up a bit if you've got to get it back for a court date or a PIP return date. PIP form return date or something like that. They might speed that process up for you a little bit. They certainly did with me. And it's just really interesting because you will find out so much more about yourself that you did not know. I mean, I found out, I only did this last year, and I got these things, and I was like, oh my God, they never told me I had this, and they never told me I had that. You know, so there will be diagnoses that have happened that you're not even aware of, quite possibly, that are on your records. So everything will be recorded on all of that. And some of it, even though I only had the last 4 years, there were some things that dated all the way back to when I was a child. So yeah, I found out a lot of stuff. So that's a very good thing to do. For anybody watching this, and then forward that to the tribunal. And it's telling that they've asked that, because that means that the DWP didn't do that in the process, because if they had of, when the tribunal requests all of the information from the DWP, it would have been included in that. So it shows that the DWP haven't done that, or at least they haven't kept up with it. So yeah, very interesting question. Very good question. Thank you for asking.
So as you're all in the chat, you can see that we've got quite a few questions. So I'm going to go from the top and work my way down.
Could you speak up a little bit? Look,
yeah, sure. Sorry. Can you hear me? Is that better?
A bit louder.
Louder. Okay, I shall shout.
Yes, that's good.
Okay, so we've had a lovely message from Sam, which I'll talk to you about afterwards, and also that she sent photos of her dogs that you haven't shown me yet, so you're in my bad books.
I haven't seen photos of dogs.
Oh.
Check that it's... I'll check my junk mail in case it's gone in there somewhere. But
good.
I've not had an email from Sam arrive.
Okay. It's nice to see John Hughes back. He has a question. Hello, Stu, Becky and all. Stu, could you confirm that the transaction payment on Universal Credit is going up probably for the first time?
The what, sorry?
The transaction payment.
Transaction payment?
Yes.
I can't confirm that at the moment. I'm not quite sure what the transaction payment is. So I will look into that. That's not something I've come across before, so I'm wondering if that's something that I've missed or misunderstood.
Oh, okay. Let's scroll down a bit whilst we think of that. Sorry, bear with me. So Joanne is really struggling at the moment with agoraphobia, and I just sort of said, have you tried any sort of local resources to try and help out? And she hasn't reached out as yet. Would you know of anyone, sort of any national agencies that she could contact?
I would start with Mind.
Yeah.
Mind UK. Mind are very good because they look at organisations in the local area that might be able to support that aren't necessarily linked to them. So they have quite a lot of regional offices, and some of those regional offices will either be completely independent or they will work alongside other organisations in that area. So it's always worth getting onto the Mind website and looking for what support is local. It can be quite challenging to phone somebody up for the first time and have a chat to them. But even if Mind aren't able to support you directly themselves, what they will be able to do is signpost you to other organisations in your area that would be able to support you with that. Like, for example, in Worcestershire, we have an NHS service called Healthy Minds, which is supposed to be the service that people will phone to get support with conditions like that, talking therapies, group therapies, all of that. Well, of course, the waiting list is 12 to 24 months long, and just to get a triage phone call takes 3 to 6 months. So
On Mind, definitely a couple of years ago, but I haven't checked for a couple of years, there was an online support group. I think it was called Ella Friends.
Yes.
And that's not face-to-face. You can just join almost
Yeah.
like an online chat room.
Absolutely.
And that can be super helpful, especially if
Well, it
you've got
can,
those
yeah.
sort of social anxieties as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's loads more online support available these days, but with as I say, with going to the Mind website, it will look to see what's in your area locally. The trouble with any of these things is when a service is set up, it's just for a very short period. So, usually the funding is for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. So if it was a couple of years ago, for example, that this service was on there, it may be on there still, it may not be. But as I say, if you find an organisation in your local area, like I say, we have Healthy Minds around here. They're not very good at signposting or supporting people because you have to wait months. But on their website, it does then link to other websites. So it's always good to look at your local authority website and do a bit of searching on there as well, because quite often there are organisations that support with mental health or disabilities, things like that. Even if you phone the wrong one, they will all know each other. From working in these organisations, I'm always meeting the same people at certain events and things like that. And you go, oh, it's you from Ulster Association of Carers. Oh, it's you from the Advocacy Service, things like that. So they all know each other, they're all linked in, and they'll signpost you in the right way. Just literally phone someone and the ball will start rolling. And yeah, so it is a challenge to make that first phone call, but if you can't do that, send an email. Do whatever. And like Becky says, there's so many online options or text chat options or forums and things like that. You can start making inroads or baby steps into it.
And I know when you're in that space, because I've been in that space, you feel like there is no way out of it. And you think, no, absolutely not. And you can kind of shut it down for yourself as well. But I really, really want to encourage you and say to Stu to just try and make that first sort of little step, because it will pay off. I was in a situation that I thought I would never get out of, and I had help and support, and it's amazing. I feel like I've got my life back, so it's totally worth it. So
I mean, look at that. At that period of time, you were there. Stressed, upset, anxious, all of those things. Had to move back in with your folks and stuff like that. Look at you now.
Yes.
Nice place. Stupid cats.
Cats that love you more than me. Only Pog.
Only this cat.
Yeah.
Things can change, and all of these things, agoraphobia, Asperger's, ADHD, all of them, you can find ways of managing these conditions and working with those conditions. Don't beat yourself up that you've got this condition. There's nothing wrong with you for having this condition.
Absolutely not.
You are a normal person. I have them. Becky has them. Everyone has these conditions. Everyone you see on the street is dealing with something. Okay? But that's the point, is we find ways of dealing with it.
Yeah, if it's stopping you from doing what you want to be doing, what you feel you need to be doing for you and for your happiness, that's when you need to sort of look into those workarounds and get the help.
Yeah, exactly. And what is happiness anyway? Maybe you're just an introvert who likes to stay in, and actually you've built it up to being, I'm agoraphobic and I can't, I'm not diminishing that condition at all, but there are elements of it where actually, maybe staying in and not socialising isn't such a bad thing. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to socialise and do things. Obviously, when it comes to important appointments, like going to see the doctor and you've got to sit in a waiting room with a bunch of people who are coughing and weird and somebody smells and all of that, then that's a different thing, or large crowds. But you know what you can do to make yourself feel happy when you get back in your place and feel comfortable and safe there, and feel safe in here as much as you can. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling.
John sent a little update saying, sorry, he meant the transition payment.
The transitional payment.
Yeah.
Well, the transitional payment, I'm not aware of it going up as yet. I am aware that there's been some talk about increasing the transitional payment. There is also talk of a specific transitional payment as well attached to this work capability assessment being removed as well. So that's all up in the air at the minute as far as I'm aware still. I haven't seen anything definitive come through as yet to say, yep, it's definitely being increased. That doesn't mean that it hasn't been said and I've just missed it, but I did have a deep dive today just to make sure that I could get all the recent updates. But if I see something, I will definitely report on that as soon as I can. Thank you, John.
Okay, so sorry for the little delay. I just need to pop back up and find the next question. Okay, so Stella, again, I've got a bit of a backstory here. So Stella is currently on limited capability for work and universal credit and is over 50. So hold your horses for one moment. And she asks, did the government say that they were going to be taking away limited capability for work benefits?
Yes.
They did, okay. And then I've got a little bit of a follow-up. She has been rejected 4 times for PIP for mixed anxiety and depressive disorder and severe back problems, spinal arthritis. So both Claire and I at the same time asked if she has appealed, and she did appeal and she failed, which just sounds terrible. But she has just applied for it again. Do you have any suggestions, any tips, any advice?
Okay, so yeah, that does sound like it's quite a complex situation. If you're applying for it again, if you could just let us know in the chat whether or not you're getting any support with that, who it is that's writing the form. The one thing that's really important to bear in mind with personal independence payment, which is different to the old style disability living allowance, is that with disability living allowance, if you weren't successful when you first applied, you could wait 6 months, apply again on all the same conditions with no changes, and it would be reconsidered essentially, and you could be awarded it. Whereas when PIP was designed, they built in a very specific rule which said that you cannot reapply under the same health conditions. So if you have the same health conditions and they have not worsened in any way, and you reapply, if you're not able to demonstrate that there's been a change in your circumstances, that the conditions have got worse, then that will be turned down. Okay, so what's important is as time passes, more than likely, if you've got something wrong with your spine or your back and you don't receive surgical treatment, or you can't for whatever reason, something like that, that's going to get worse over time, particularly as you get older. And if you're over 50, that will certainly be the case. So the thing is that may get worse. So it's getting across that that's worse, or that you have more health conditions that you've developed, and getting that in there as well. So that's that element. To answer the first part of the question, yes, the limited capability for work-related activity group is being removed from universal credit. As I said earlier, that won't happen until 2026 to 2027. Okay, when that happens, everyone who is receiving that at the moment will get transitional protection, which means that the amount that they receive will stay the same, even if they don't have PIP. Okay, so I would say certainly you need to get support if you're doing that PIP application again, just on the basis of the conditions that you've mentioned. You know, I can envisage how they're affecting you throughout your day. I don't see, just on the basis of that information about those conditions, that you wouldn't be eligible for PIP. That's not to say that you are specifically, but I can see that being quite a fight, particularly if you've been turned down at appeal, which is unusual, before. So again, did you have support with that appeal, or was that something you did yourself? Did you have enough evidence? Evidence. Get so much evidence you have to shove it up their ass really hard, and then they might listen, kind of thing. So get that support, get somebody who's going to fight that with you. Do what I said earlier about the medical records as well. Get those medical records for yourself. Don't assume that the DWP are doing it, because they don't always. They say they do, but they just cherry pick what evidence that they like, things like that. So just get as much evidence as possible.
So I've got lots of questions, but a couple of nice comments as well. Unfortunately, Quentin Crispin Dright has just left. However, he's or they are off doing something exciting, I hope. But they say, Stu, I battled PIP twice alone, but now I'm getting what I'm entitled to. That is thanks to you and your channel. Respect. So that is great.
Thank you.
And also
Good,
said,
glad.
your channel is so helpful to many. Thank you both so much, which is lovely. Louisa's just has asked, does every claimant of PIP get assessed, as she's on standard and enhanced rates but has never been asked for an assessment?
No, not everybody gets assessed. It's not. It's normal that people do get assessed, but there are some when medical evidence is overwhelming and certain conditions will have an inevitable effect on a person, and that can't be argued. Then it may be that they don't have to go through an assessment. It is rare that happens, but for example, my nephew has Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. He has had, he's got a number of other conditions which are very complex Latin words that I can't explain. If it comes to the point that he needs to have a PIP assessment, it is going to be unlikely that they are going to do an actual face-to-face assessment. They will probably just look at his records and go, yeah, that's fair enough, because a person with this level of condition would not be able to do certain things or would meet the qualifying criteria. So yeah, it is a possibility. Also, sometimes they do want to expedite things, so people that have had a review where they've got a permanent condition and it's just going to get worse over time, it's not going to get better. When it comes to them doing their review, they'll look at it, they'll see everything's the same, they'll look at the medical records, assuming they've been sent off, and so on and so forth, and they'll look at all of that and they'll go, we've done an assessment before, there's not much point us doing an assessment again because we know the condition's not going to have improved or it's going to have got worse. So sometimes at review as well, there are more occasions at review when people don't have an assessment. So that's a good question to ask. It can be reassuring for some people. It's a bit surprising as well, because you sort of, when you get it, you kind of feel a bit guilty because you think, well, all these other people are having to go through this and I didn't have to, sorts of thing. But don't feel guilty. It's just that your evidence or your case was, very strong.
I've got a question from Mr. Grimsdale. If a couple who have joint ESA legacy separate, will both remain on the legacy once they claim independently, or will one or both be moved onto universal credit?
They will probably be moved onto universal credit. That is very likely. So they would, particularly if they're moving into a different house or something like that, I would think it's very likely that they're going to ask you to do a reassessment and to move on to universal credit. And to be honest, it's going to happen anyway in the next 2 to 4 years. It's not clear whether it's a 2-year process or a 4-year process. We've had different reports from Teresa Coffrey to the new guy. to Jeremy Hunt and all of that. Some say it's going to be over 2 years, some say it's going to be over 4, but it is going to happen. So yeah, it's quite likely. But don't forget, you will have that transitional protection in place. So whatever rate or whatever group you're in, so if you're in the support group, then when you move on to universal credit, you should automatically go into the limited capability for work-related activity group. You'll move into that group, and you should be on the same amount of money proportionally.
So Karen is on the other type of ESA, which means that she doesn't get the cost of living payment, just the 150 with PIP. Will the new put my teeth in. Will the new universal credit change this?
So I'm not sure what she means. If she's on contributory ESA, that might be why she's missed out on it. Or if she's on the legacy one, if you do move across to universal credit, then you should get the Sorry, let me rephrase that. If you were on universal credit or other qualifying benefits during the qualifying period for the cost of living payment, then you would get it. So if you are on the old style ESA or you're on I think old style ESA get it, but contributory don't, as I recall. But yeah, if you were on that during the qualifying period, then moving over to universal credit at this point wouldn't mean that you would get that, if that's what you're asking.
Contribution one.
Yeah. So yeah, those are the guys that missed out, because they're lovely like that, the government. You're just as poor as these people, but you paid for your poorness yourself by working really hard in the job, so you don't get anything. What? Not that these other people didn't work hard in the job, I might add. It's just the way they think, not how I think. But like I say, there's no point you trying to do that now to get that payment if that's what you're thinking. And in the future, these changes to universal credit, they will probably always treat people on contributory ESA in the same way. Sorry, jaw locked.
Okay, I'm just going to pop in some good news before the next
good
question.
News.
So Rick Shaw, who has
Rick Shaw.
Been an avid watcher and joiner, has finally received the reviewed. Why can't I speak? I haven't even had a drink. The review decision that he's been waiting for since October. We've kind of been tracking this along.
Yes.
So it's really good, and that takes past 66 years old, and that was on PIP. So just, yes, excellent. We're really, really pleased about that.
Okay. Well,
so
good for Rick.
It's really, really good. I'm just going to scroll to the next question. If I've missed anyone out, don't worry, I'm scrolling up and down on my teeny tiny screen, and I will look back. Okay, so Mark R34. Hi guys, first payment came out last week of my PIP. I received £675.15 when it was meant to be £691. Why is this, if you know? Thank you. Do you know?
I don't know. I've had quite a few messages from people who were expecting to receive more this last month and receive less without any real indication as to why. We were expecting to see a 10.1% increase across all benefits, and we were told that would happen starting this month. And even me, myself, mine went through, and it wasn't the amount that it should have been. And nothing's been said, no one's been told why. It's really not clear as to why that 10.1% increase has applied to some people but not to everybody. So I'm not clear on it myself. I don't know why I didn't get the amount I should have. I don't know why you didn't get the amount you should have. Yours should have gone up to that amount. So yeah. Don't know.
Sorry.
In terms of your personal circumstances, it might be worth giving them a ring and just querying that over the phone with them. If there has been a mistake or a misunderstanding, something like that, it may be that they're able to explain that over the phone to you. If you just call the 0800 or 0300 number that's on the front of your PIP award letter, you might be able to find that out. And there may even be a recorded message that's telling you why, if it's affected more people than just you. Of course, it could be, with all of these things, something that is specific to your situation and your circumstances, which obviously I'm not going to know. So it's always good, if this is happening to you or if you're confused, to give them a call. I have done a video on how to make calls and not get really stressed out with the DWP when you're on the phone, so it might be worth looking on my channel for that if you have any anxiety about doing it. But yeah, give them a call.
So just before I go to Wobbly Pete's question, we have another celebration. I feel like we should have some kind of glitter machine, but I'm such a neat freak that it wouldn't go down well, would it, with me? No,
I can't deal with the Hoover.
You can't. The sound of the Hoover, you hate it.
Yes.
So Victoria Bruton, sorry if I'm saying your name completely wrong, Bruton?
Just Victoria.
Victoria. Last week, I'm pleased to say the tribunal agreed with my claim. This cost me 3 letters from my GP and an MRI scan. Every submission of a letter, they'd said no. The DWP didn't even send a representative.
They knew they were going to lose then.
It's really good news.
That is good news.
Yeah.
That's really good news. So, well done. It's a shame that you had to go through all of that stress, but at least you've got to this point now. But always remember, keep all that evidence, keep it locked away and filed properly. And this is a message to everyone, not just to Victoria, because I don't put it past them to turn it down again when it comes up to a review. They'll try it again if they can. So keep that evidence there. Keep track of all your appointments, things like that. Yeah.
So yes, well done. Wobbly Pete. Hi Stuart. Getting access to my personal pension in a couple of months. Will my PIP, Universal and ESA be affected? I will be 55, so how much of my tax-free allowance could I get with my benefits?
Well, that entirely depends on the amount that you're getting from your personal pension. It will affect your universal credit. It won't affect your attendance allowance. So it entirely depends on how much you get. The thing that you have to do is just keep them informed. So if you're getting universal credit, you need to inform them as soon as it comes in, when it comes in, what amount you're getting. Do that through your journal, but also double that up. If you don't get a response within 24 hours to that, double that up with giving them a call as well. It might be that they ask you to fill in some sort of form to do that, or to enter that information into a certain area of your universal credit account, but it will affect it. I can't say exactly how much by or what your allowance will be or anything like that, but they will calculate it. And to be honest, the way that the calculations are done now, they're done within a computer. It's not somebody sitting down working out with a calculator, so they tend to be correct when those calculations are done, as long as you provided the exact right amount. They also may ask to see some evidence as well, so they might want to see your pension award letter that you get from your pension provider, or whatever. So just be aware that you may have to scan that and upload it, or post it into them, something like that as well. But it won't affect your attendance allowance. Non-means tested. That's okay.
Stuart, that's not helping me. Sorry. Oh, Steve said it could be because they pay us 2 weeks behind.
Yeah, that's a
possibility.
Right? Yeah, I did think that's why I was waiting till next month before I started phoning anybody with queries as to why I hadn't got that amount. Because I thought, well, hang on a minute, maybe
Yeah,
it's
Sam
just
said the same.
the way the payment falls within the month. So that's a good point.
Lovely. Okay, Baileys and Ice. Hi. Oh, that sounds good right now. Hi. I was previously on Job Seekers with standard daily living and mobility, as well as the severe disability premium. The job centre said I had to go on universal credit and shut down my Job Seekers allowance.
Right.
Should they be automatically put in the limited capability group?
Again, yes. So if you are on the previous system and you are in the support group, then when you move across, you will get that transitional protection. You should, and you should be put in that. If that didn't happen for some reason, then you could easily get that changed. But you said job seekers allowance there rather than employment support allowance. So I'm just wondering if what you mean is employment support allowance. Job seekers allowance means that you're fit and actively seeking work. If you're in that group, if you're unfit to work, you would have been on employment support allowance. So
Tone Dial says the odd D payments are because it spans part months and months in arrears, etc.
might be, yeah.
Yeah. It's just Victoria saying, yep, she spoke with us a couple of months ago. We do remember, and we're really pleased for you. Am I missing anyone's questions?
Possibly
I'm
not.
sort of scrolling.
We are sort of coming close towards the end of our hour now anyway. But one thing I did want to say to people, just to go over a bit of channel related stuff. So we did talk about the possibility of doing 2 of these a month, which might be quite good to do. I was hoping that maybe we might be able to do that this month or next month, but we've just had so much stuff going on. It's just been impossible to fit it in.
My birthday.
So yeah, there was Becky's birthday, and there were other things as well. So that's been an element. But what I would very much like to do, and I sort of feel is happening a little bit here with people talking to each other and things like that in the chat, is creating a kind of support forum. And I've sort of mentioned this in other videos and other sessions before. A lot of people post questions to me, a lot of questions, and it's just impossible for me to be able to answer all of those questions. I mean, one of my videos had over 500 questions, and I just can't answer all of those things. But there are people who we know who dropped in the channel, like last time. I think there was Edward, and people like that. Or we've just had this little back and forth there where Steve and the other chap, short-term memory is not great, so apologies, who just talked about, well, actually it might be, because of the way the month fell, that you didn't get that full amount of payment. So it's this kind of thing that's really helpful and really supportive. I can't possibly know everything, nobody can, and I do my very best, but there are going to be some areas where I'm kind of like a bit not sure, or I haven't read that just yet, but somebody else might have seen something in the news and they can post that and say, well, actually I saw this update. If you are going to pop something that you've seen somewhere, if you can put a link to that thing as well, that would be really helpful. Or it might be that you've gone through and experienced something and you can say to someone else in the question or in the chat, this is what happened for me. Like if anybody's experienced agoraphobia and have, help
Or
with that,
anxiety.
or anxiety, something like that, and they know of an organisation that could be helpful other than Mind, you might bang that in the chat for somebody. So yeah.
I've got just a couple of very quick questions that I did miss, sorry.
Okay, cool.
Because I've been too busy chatting about myself and my
it's
birthday. Can a couple both claim PIP?
Not a joint claim, but
Okay.
yes, they can.
Individually, yes.
Individually, yeah.
Lovely. And
PIP is always about the individual.
Is a letter enough from a GP for appeal, or does Claire need whole DSAR information?
DS.
Is that the thing that you said?
Oh,
about the
subject access
subject
request.
Yeah.
A letter's probably not enough. Just throw as much mud at the wall. Just throw as much as you can at the wall. Get the full DSAR. DSAR, for those who don't know, is Data Subject Access Request, which is, a data protection request, as it used to be called when we had the Data Protection Act. Do the full SAR. Like I say, set the period of time that you need covered. Might be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. But yeah, do the full one. Just throw it all at the tribunal and let them go through it and decide what's important and what's not. Don't, and you've got it for yourself for the future. It's helpful to have.
And another quick one. Stevie C is just wondering, in terms of cost of living allowance, if you receive universal credit and PIP, are you more likely to get PIP cost of living rather than universal credit?
If you're receiving both, you should get both, as long as you were receiving those within the qualifying period, and there were no sanctions against you and things like that. So there are provisos, but if you are on universal credit and on PIP, so universal credit, you get the cost of living payments are going through at the minute. Some people have had them, some people are still waiting. They'll be running until second or third week of May, and then they should have all gone out by then. Then I think in July we're looking at the PIP cost of living payment, and then again in October, November we should be seeing the second universal credit cost of living payment going through. So you should get both for both in theory.
Lovely. Edward Brown's back in the room. He says he would like to discuss a few things with you privately.
Okay. If he wants to drop me an email to stu.mcg00. I forgot how to spell my own name then. Sorry, stu.mcg00.info@gmail.com. And let me know what it is you want to discuss, and I'll see if I can squeeze it in, or we can talk about it by email.
I think we've covered everyone's questions.
Lovely.
Which is great.
Fantastic.
And I've had lots of lovely birthday messages too. It's all about me.
Good. My birthday's on the 21st.
It is. It's coming up.
Don't anybody send me a present.
I will.
Yeah, well, I expect one from you, but not from anyone else. But yeah, anyway, thank you to everybody for tuning in and supporting the channel, and hopefully I'll get some more time to put some more videos out in the next few weeks. We'll see, and we'll see you all, if not before, in a month. Or hopefully we won't see you. I don't know. Hopefully you won't need us and things will be good and stuff, But we always like to see you, so you're always welcome. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching, and
could you give me your email address one more time? Because
my email address one more time.
Stu.McGoo at
stu.mcg00.info@gmail.com.
Lovely. .info@gmail.com.
Okay.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks to everybody. See you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.